All right, we're going to have a pretty candid conversation today about the current state of the market. Ethereum is at a very, very key level, flirting with danger as it tests the key $4,000 support zone. This was the breakout zone that led to extension to previous all-time highs, but it's now being retested. I want to go through my feelings on the market, what I think happens over the next few weeks, and I want to give you my full game plan, exactly how I'm approaching this period in the market, because to be honest, it's tricky right now. Now, obviously, there's been some amazing trades like the ASTER trade, which came out of nowhere. But if you haven't been able to catch some of these recent trades, the market is pretty brutal right now, and it's likely that your portfolios are suffering. So hopefully today I can give you an objective view on the market, how I'm playing things, and towards the end of the video, we're going to look into Q4 a bit more. Like, what are the tokens? What are the narratives that could genuinely outperform into Q4? I've got some exact setups later in the video, which I want to share with you, because now is time to act on a few positions, in my opinion. If you enjoy content like this, make sure to subscribe, click the post notification bell so you don't miss the daily crypto alpha here on the channel. This channel is dedicated to giving you a leg up in the market. And without further ado, let's get into things here. So on Ethereum right now, it's very clear $4,000 is the key support level. It's funny, now that we're testing support, a bunch of people are coming out of the woodwork and are overtly bearish towards Ethereum. Like Ansem said, ETH is genuinely going to drop 50%. Look, at the end of the day, support is support until proven otherwise. And on a weekly level like this, you would be looking for a weekly close. Now, we haven't got a weekly close. And you could even assert that we would maybe need a consecutive weekly close next Sunday to even start flirting with the idea of coming back down to the next support levels, which is in this region here at $3,000. I understand that sentiment has flipped, but I wouldn't be preparing for that minus 50% scenario just yet, but we're going to take a look at what could happen over the next few weeks in just a second. I think a lot of this is being driven by ETF outflows. We saw a lot of capital going into the Ethereum ETFs off the back of the Tom Lee DAT Ethereum treasury narrative, which was really strong. And by the way, that hasn't gone away. It's just that trade is over for now. So the market is waiting for its next catalyst for Ethereum to run. And I think one of the catalysts that Ethereum needs is actually Bitcoin to start outperforming, because we've actually seen dominance starting to bounce. Now, we haven't seen this reflected in the Bitcoin USD chart yet, but it is a bit of a signal that the focus of the market is shifting back into Bitcoin as alts are being sold off. Now, this is actually something that if you've been watching the channel, you would have expected this rotation, because I've had this level drawn in for the last few weeks, and I've talked about the fact that dominance would likely come down to this level, retest, and then I was going to rotate some of my portfolio back into Bitcoin. And just like I said in those videos, that's exactly what I have done. Look, I'm not totally out of altcoins. I still hold a decent portfolio. I'm going to speak about in a few minutes exactly how I'm managing that altcoin portfolio, but something I did do was shift more capital into Bitcoin, and that trade I don't think is over just yet. As Benjamin Cowan says, we're likely to expect dominance to keep climbing just based on the fact it has reversed trend potentially into October. He says alt season calls once again are premature. I mean, I don't even like the term alt season. I use it sometimes because that's what everyone else kind of understands and comprehends. But the reality is, there's always like a mini alt season in the market. Like, these are market conditions where, because the business cycle is in full swing, because gold's going up, equities are going up, and there is speculative interest still in crypto. And we saw this with ASTER. When the right narrative comes along, people are actually willing to bid. And this creates like these mini alt seasons or pockets of narrative outperformance where you can make a lot of money. But the up only alt season of yesteryear, I don't think is something to expect this cycle. And that's been something I've been saying all year as well. It's just a very, very different cycle, and you have to play it differently, which is what we're going to discuss today. But just quickly, let's go through Bitcoin and seasonality first, because Bitcoin right now, it's still in this downtrend. You would want to see us starting to break out of the trend and actually reclaiming the upwards level here on the channel for us to start to make a reversal. But on Bitcoin, it does kind of look like we are probably going to get a lower low, just purely based off the fact that we rejected off the channel high. So the channel low on Bitcoin is 108. Looking likely that we come down and tag that level now, just based on probabilities and based on the fact that the trend is your friend until the end of the trend. Now, it might not be your friend in terms of making money, but it's your friend in terms of respecting the fact that we are in a downtrend on Bitcoin, and until proven otherwise, you kind of have to treat the market as such. I think one of the things that's at least holding Bitcoin in good stead from a macro perspective, however, is the fact that it still is in a nice uptrend on the weekly. It does look like we are potentially going to see a continued flush over the next couple of weeks as we come down and at least retest this noodle. Even if it does take a couple of weeks to actually retest this level, I do think a flush into this 107, 108 zone could be possible before a recovery. And it could go even deeper than that. I mean, if you look at prior times Bitcoin has retested the weekly bound, you've seen it actually, deviate slightly below and then reclaim. It happened twice, once in July 24 and once in April earlier this year. So that would be normal price action. There's actually nothing to worry about on Bitcoin. But what it is doing is it's further solidifying the thesis that potentially we will see a run into 2026. Just like I've been saying all year, I expected a local Bitcoin top between Q4 and Q1. I still think that could definitely happen given the fact it's only September. We're not even in Q4 yet. And then there's another 3 months after that, which is Q1, to potentially reach a new high. Then I think Bitcoin cools off for a bit, and then I think we hit a new high later in 2026. I said this back in April, and the chart is still lining up with that. So I have no reason to flip bias just based on short-term price action. My plan hasn't actually changed there. Ted had an interesting tweet here where he observed that oftentimes after the Fed cuts rates, Bitcoin will actually dump and then end up having a big rally. So you can actually see the Bitcoin price dumped 12% after the Fed cut rates last time, but then went on to rally 58%. We've seen this multiple times, so this could be a bit of a buy the rumor, sell the news scenario when it comes to rate cuts, where there's a shakeout and then expansion, and this could potentially line up with the fact that we could get a bit of a pullback now and then have expansion into Q4/Q1. So this data, although it's only 2 data points, does line up with that thesis. What also lines up with that thesis is Bitcoin seasonality. So if you look at the quarterly returns, obviously different quarters can be different to past quarters, but we can assert that Q4 is typically a much stronger period than Q3. In fact, Q3, which we are currently in right now, is the weakest period for Bitcoin out of all the quarters. I mean, you could see it's only plus 5% on average compared to all the other quarters, which are 50%, 27%, and 85%. So people are freaking out and people are starting to bear post. But remember, this technically is the weakest period in terms of seasonality. So it's not something that should be taking you fully off guard. But we are talking about Bitcoin and Ethereum. The game becomes trickier when it comes to playing altcoins. So what I really want to do today is dive into exactly how I'm approaching the market right now, my framework surrounding my portfolio, my framework surrounding altcoins, and then some of the exact plays that I'm looking into in Q4. In fact, there's a play today that I'm looking into that I might actually end up taking in probably the coming hours after uploading this video. So lots of alpha yet to come. But before we get into this, I want to answer the comment of the day. Remember, I'm doing a series every single day where I pick a comment from the comments in the prior video. I answer it on the show. And if I pick your comment, you're going to win $500. So congratulations, Rudrasen. You have won $500. All you need to do is go into your comment in the past video and reply with your X or your Instagram handle. We were doing wallets before, but YouTube was blocking a lot of the wallet replies. So instead, just drop your social media handle, either X or Instagram, and my team will reach out to you. So make sure you have DMs turned on and make sure that you check your DMs over the next few days. You have 3 days to claim your $500. And if you want to win $500, all you need to do is comment on this video, and we are going to pick someone in the next video. So we're doing this every single day. And if you've already commented, there can be repeat winners. So just keep commenting. Obviously, the better and the more interesting the question, the more likely I answer it on the show. But some days we'll pick, random comments and stuff to win just to share the love around a little bit. But this is a very good question because it's about ASTER, one of my best trades of the year, one of my best trades of my crypto career, actually. He asks, hey, Miles, also got into ASTER, albeit slightly later than you. What do you think is a realistic top for short-term price? Let's go through the chart because it is interesting right now. And how much do you think the DEX narrative is going to run? Not a shill, but I've also got my eye on Sunperp as of today. Yeah, the DEX narrative is super hot. Obviously, ASTER was a great trade. Posted it in the Discord around 50 to 60 cents. As you can see here, we were pretty early. It went on to do, I think, a 4x from the time of posting. And this was in my high conviction channel as well. So very happy with that trade. Ended up being a very big trade. Of course, if you want all the early alpha, link in the description to Miles High Club. As usual, come and join. I think the longer you're not in, if you aren't already in, the more you're missing out on the alpha because the analysts, not just me, but Fabian Paradise, everyone has been on absolute fire. But this was a very good trade. One I also posted a lot about again at $1 the next day. So I still had conviction from 50 cents to $1. But it did start to exhibit signs of exhaustion over the past 24 hours. I actually TP'd a little bit early. I TP'd a little bit in this range here. into this resistance, and then I TP'd again up here at $2, actually on this breakdown. So I didn't quite catch the Pico top, but I mean, the fact that we got in, it's actually earlier than this chart because this is the Binance chart. We got in the Discord like down here in this zone. So, TPing here and here is not a bad play. You're never going to catch the top. The best thing with taking profits is just to incrementally do it over time. But in terms of your question, which is about what I think about the price action in the short term, this has flipped from bullish to bearish. So I do think this might take a little bit of time. Of course, it could surprise us and go on a big rally as it, does so often. But I do think this time's a little bit different in the sense that we went from an uptrend on the 30-minute to a downtrend. We had a bearish retest, and now we are currently retesting the $2 level. That being said, this is probably the level to bid because risk reward on $2 is pretty good. You can set your stop below the prior wick low, but that would be a really low time frame trade. If you're looking at spot or if you're looking at, a lower risk trade, you probably want to wait until this trend actually reverses again. So wait for the token to start to come up, reclaim, then get into a new confirmation long, maybe have a bit of a wider stop gap to have an invalidation on that trade, or conversely, wait for it to come back down, potentially sweep this 1.75 level or 180 level, and I think this could be a decent entry as well. Part of the reason why my short-term views are a little bit softer on ASTER now is because A, it's gone on a massive run-up, but B, CZ's been tweeting a lot of other Binance Labs projects, and the whole thing about ASTER was that it's CZ's project, it's CZ's answer to Hyperliquid. And although I don't think that narrative has gone away, I think it slightly mutes things if he keeps, posting about other projects. So I think that is slow momentum in the short term. However, we're going to get into it later in this video. I still think there's an opportunity to make money on ASTER. There's also opportunities to trade it. With a new token like this, with so much mind share, you can trade this and make money. And actually right now we have a very cool promo on Blofin where you can get a free $15 trade just for signing up. So there's actually no strings here. There's no deposit bonuses. There's no KYC. There's no weird terms and conditions. As you can see here, all you need to do is sign up using the link in the description, and you're going to get a free pump fund trade issued to your account within 3 hours of registration. And it's a $15 trade. So if you put on 10x leverage, you effectively have a $150 position in ASTER. So if it goes up 10% in price, you double your money and you can cash out $150 clean just on a 10% move. Obviously, you can go higher or lower on the leverage scale as well, but just giving you an example there. So you can really open a $150 trade here risk-free if you don't already have a Blofin account. So this is only for the first 100 users. I did post it earlier on my Discord. I think 30 slots are already taken, so there's 70 left. So you'll need to be quick if you want to get into this. It's only got 2 days left as well, and then the timer runs out. But I think we're going to hit 100 users before the timer runs out. But that's like a free hit for you, free swing on an ASTER trade, whether you want to take a long or take a short. In terms of what I would do, potentially you could look at a short into the money noodle here. If we have another impulse up and it's another lower high, that short could take us down to 180, and then you could potentially swing long in this region. This is probably the region where I'd be more interested in a long, but you could trade and do whatever you want with that voucher. Now let's get into strategy, as I said I was going to get into before. How am I approaching the market right now? Well, I think a good way to set the scene as to how I view the market is to read out some of the tweet that I posted earlier where I wrote down my in-depth thoughts about the market. So here are my thoughts. Most alts are underperforming. The temptation to rotate into winners is high. Issues are rotations are quite quick. Look at how fast pump retraced. Even ENA, which was strong for weeks, is now weak. So I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is a very hard market to trade because there are so many rotations. And even if you get into a good rotation, they're not lasting long enough for that narrative to have sustained buy power. I mean, look at what happened with Pump. There's actually a good trade I think I want to share later in the video about Pump. But it's just really hard to play the market right now. Even though the narrative trades are quite profitable, you really have to be spot on with your timing. It's also hard to hold a big spot altcoin portfolio. I mean, many of you are probably experiencing that your portfolios are bleeding out right now. My portfolio also isn't doing that well over the last week. I think things have been covered up and I've papered over the cracks with a very good ASTER trade, which has made up for that. But if I hadn't hit the ASTER trade, I probably would be a little bit depressed right now, to be completely honest. That's just covered things up and at least kept me full in the meantime. But it is a difficult market. And I'll explain why when it comes to holding a lot of altcoins. Because there's so much dilution, I mean, we've got Plasma today. I've got a trade set up. I want to talk about later on that. We've got ASTER, which obviously recently launched. Linear recently launched. MetaMask is teasing a token. Like all these stable, there's a new stablecoin protocol by the founder of Tether. So all of these new protocols keep launching. So it's just adding to dispersion. So by default, the more altcoins you hold in your portfolio, the more you expose yourself to dispersion, and actually the lower odds of winning you actually give yourself. Whereas when you hold less tokens and go in with higher conviction, yes, you need to be a bit better with timing, but you actually give yourself a bigger chance of winning because you can get into things with mindshare. So it's a tricky market because I also understand, it doesn't make sense to be fully out of the market, but you also probably don't want to be fully in a huge altcoin portfolio. So what I would say to people is maybe consider holding less altcoins, going in with higher conviction trades, and potentially holding more stablecoins. I mean, I'm roughly 50% stables now. You'll know this if you've been watching the show over the past few weeks. And the reason I'm 50% stablecoins is because I'm just really taking the approach of waiting for trades to come to me and then going big. ASTER was an example of that. I have an interesting setup on Plasma I'll share today that I'm interested in taking if I get the right setup. But the only way I can do that is if I have liquidity. If I'm all in a huge altcoin portfolio, I'm not going to be able to have the liquidity or frankly the patience or the mental fortitude, because I'll be way too emotional to actually take advantage of opportunities when they come. So I think it's a bit of a reframing as to how to approach the market now versus what it was like in 2021. I think the best strategy the past few weeks has actually been to position in stables or BTC as a base asset. So, keep the majority of your liquidity in those base assets and then take little bets, or bigger bets if you have high conviction, and use that to stack more Bitcoin or stable coins. And then when, the stars align on a trade, you can use that liquidity to get into that trade. And this strategy, which I've spoken about a lot on the channel this year, has started to become more and more and more of my actual approach as the year's gone on. Like towards the start of the year, my portfolio was a lot bigger. I find it getting smaller and smaller and smaller towards the end of the year. Now, this isn't saying that I, don't have altcoin plays like an AI and RWA, which I'm just sitting on, but the size of those positions are typically a lot smaller now. So the way I split up my portfolio is 80% is safe for high conviction, and then 20% I'm spraying and praying a little bit more. And I'm happy to just hold that stuff, because 20% for me is an amount I'm willing to gamble on. I call it like the Becker approach. Becker's spoken a lot about just averaging into altcoins and waiting. I'm happy to do that with 20% of my portfolio, but I'm really unhappy to do that with the other 80% because I think the opportunity cost of being exposed to this market and not giving yourself enough liquidity to trade is just far too big, at least in my opinion, which is why I'm doing that with a smaller amount of my capital. So, some of the tokens I speak about on the show, even though they might be down, it doesn't mean I'm not holding them anymore. It just means it's within that smaller bucket of my portfolio. And that's something in the Discord. We have a questions channel, which I think is really cool. I get a lot of questions all the time about, what are you doing with this altcoin? What are your thoughts on this altcoin? Are you sizing up on this? Are you sizing down on this? That's where I answer all the questions because unfortunately, YouTube just isn't a very good platform to actually facilitate these conversations. Like I'd love to give you an answer, let's say if you're holding checks, I'd love to give you an update on that, but I can't do it every day and I can't answer specific questions on the YouTube. So the Discord's good because people can ask me about specific altcoins and what I'm doing. Because there have been times over the last few months where I've de-risked a position and Discord's really the only place I can give that update. This is not a very good medium for that. So I'll try and update you when I can on these positions, but Discord's the place where you can ask me these questions directly and I can update you on coins directly. So these are my overall opinions on the cycle, but what can you do with that information? Well, the first thing, and this is pretty obvious, but I want to reiterate it today, is that you should start prioritizing survival over making money. This becomes clear whenever the market dips, but this rings true even when the market is bullish. So if you chopped up your portfolio, or if you get bored or lose patience and end up rage quitting like 90% of retail do, and the YouTube views are probably going to be down over the next couple of weeks because most people rage quit, most people lose interest, you didn't even put yourself in a position to hit a big trade. So anyone that quit because they couldn't deal with the market over the start of this year has essentially removed even the possibility of hitting ASTER, for example. If you're not in the game, you're not even exposing yourself to opportunity. Luck in crypto really isn't luck. Of course, you can get a bit lucky sometimes, but luck is often engineered by increasing your surface area. And to increase your surface area, you need to constantly be in the game. And to constantly be in the game, you need to survive. And to survive, you need to actually take less risk and be a bit more defensive by default. Whatever you need to do to stick around, do that thing. If that's holding more stables, hold more stables. If that's taking a different approach to the market, take a different approach to the market. If that's gamifying things for yourself and having like a little research routine you do every morning and tick off the boxes on Notion, do that thing. Whatever it takes for you to stay around and stay engaged, if it's being in my Discord because there's a community there to support you and I'm there to answer questions and that helps you with the difficult times in the market, then do that. Whatever you can do to stay engaged is your number one priority right now. It's actually not making money. And by nature of that, you're going to put yourself in a position to hit a trade like ASTER. The next thing that I would do, and this is like, quite a rash way of me saying it. I had a tweet here that, just cut your effing losers already. The other thing you need to do is consolidate. And this is something I do on a weekly basis. This isn't just something I would do now. But if you haven't done it in the last few weeks, it's always a good time to consolidate. And use this framework for when you do. So if you're holding a token and you're not sure if you should cut it or reduce exposure, use this mental trick. This is something I personally do every single week to keep my portfolio clean, tidy, and this makes me feel like I have control over my decisions and I'm not letting my emotions take control. So what you need to do is imagine that your coin, the coin in question, go through your whole portfolio, do this for each coin, magically got liquidated into USDT or a stable coin overnight. What would you do the next day? If you would instantly repurchase that coin the next morning after it gets magically liquidated, that is a sign that you should keep holding your position. If you wouldn't touch the position and rebuy the position at all, that's a sign that you should actually sell your position because you shouldn't be holding it in the first place if you wouldn't have the conviction to rebuy it at today's current price. And if you would only buy half back, that is a sign that you are overexposed by 50% and you should cut half of your position. Because at the end of the day, holding a coin is effectively the same commitment as agreeing to long it at today's price. This test stops me from holding bags I don't have real conviction in, and I do this weekly. Such a powerful mental framework. So a bit of homework for you. Go through your whole portfolio and truly ask yourself, put yourself in the position, close your eyes and imagine, all right, I'm holding MNT. If my $10,000 position was worth 10,000 USDT tomorrow, would I rebuy it instantly? Would I rebuy half or would I rebuy none? And that's going to answer a lot of your questions around whether you should keep holding an underperformer in the market. And to be frank with you, if you do this, you're probably going to realize you're overexposed to a lot of tokens you don't want to be exposed to. And that's a harsh reality for a lot of people. But I think that framework really helps you maintain objectivity and not succumb to your emotions. So now we've talked about cutting losers. Let's pivot to a more exciting discussion, which is looking at winners. Because although I don't think I've been too grim in today's video, I'm just being realistic, but although, the picture of the market looks a bit slow right now, and, overall altcoins look a little bit grim right now, I think there's still so much opportunity in the market. ASTER highlighted this, but I want to highlight a few other opportunities, narratives, trends, and things that I'm seeing in the market that can help you make money. And it also goes back to surviving the market as well, as I discussed before. If survival is your number one priority, if you're focused on the right stuff, if you're focusing your energy and your attention on the right things, it's going to make it so much easier to survive. Most people focus their attention on the wrong things. They focus 90% of their energy on managing their underperforming spot portfolio instead of focusing their energy on high upside plays, narratives, and activities that they can do to extract an edge in the market. So now let's look at some potential winners in the market. The first one's ASTER. As I mentioned before, you can claim a free blowfin trade on this if you do want to trade it. I think this could exhibit weakness, but if it does, I still think that is a multi-week or a multi-month opportunity. I think the perp.dex narrative is super strong in the market, and that's something I would still be focused on. The other narrative I would be quite focused on is the stablecoin narrative. XPL is launching today. We're going to be uploading this video basically at the time of launch. So prices fluctuating around 80 cents, but it'll be very volatile on launch. Now, 80 cents, I believe, puts it roughly at a $1.5 billion market cap, but at an $8 billion FTV, assuming a 15% circulating supply, that is a little bit too high for me. I still think there's upside there, but what I would prefer is getting in on a dip if we do see a sell-off on launch. Because remember, people got into the pre-sale at 800 million. If there's a dip, I think that would be a good opportunity to add more of the token. If you guys don't know what Plasma is, it's Paolo, the CEO of Tether's coin. And because they're probably not going to do an IPO for a while, it's one of the only speculative vehicles to get exposure to the upside of Tether, or one of the only ways that people can invest in Tether right now. So if there is a big sell-off, and let's say it goes to like the 50-cent region, 40% region, those would be levels where I'm interested in adding. I'm not interested in shorting. I'm a net longer of the coin because I think the stablecoin narrative is quite enticing, and I won't read it out now, but if you want to pause the video, Fabian posted an amazing post in his altcoin alpha channel, which goes over Plasma's launch. His analysis is honestly amazing. He never ceases to amaze me. Like the guy is just so on point in the Discord. It's actually insane. Zemo also recognized this. MHC's been on fire lately. Dude with Dam, Mars with Aster, Paradise with Sol, Fabi to Morin with AVAX. All great calls, lads. Keep up the good work. So it's good to see the members eating in MHC. If you do want to join, I'll leave a link in the description below. It's probably the best the group's ever been, in my opinion. Between all of the analysts, the live sessions, we onboarded a new low time frame trader as well. And the existing analysts just continue to kill it. So Morin's getting better and better and better. He actually has his profitability public on EdgeWonk. So you can actually see that he is a proven profitable trader, which I don't see many other traders actually disclosing that. So honestly, it's been amazing to be a part of that community. And as I mentioned before, if you're struggling with surviving in crypto, and if you're struggling, finding these narrative plays in crypto, Mars High Club is the place to be for that. The other thing I would be really looking into right now, alongside stablecoins, are on-chain perp plays, so perp dexes, and prediction markets. I think we're entering a much bigger market with these protocols. These are real revenue-generating protocols, which I think is appealing to a new audience, which was never really interested in crypto before. So if you're looking for max opportunity in the space, I'll be looking into these three verticals, and you should be doing everything in your power to capitalize on these verticals. So farming airdrops, tracking trading new launches, looking at beta plays, all that stuff. I think airdrop farming, and I'm probably going to do a full dedicated video on this tomorrow, is a massive opportunity at the moment and has been pretty much the whole year. I mean, Fabian, for example, he posted about ASTER, and he's been posting about Lighter since April. The guy's probably going to get $1 million airdrop from these tokens. I mean, I don't know how many points he has. I'm just guessing here, just posturing. But he's probably going to make a lot of money because he's literally been talking about farming these for the entire year in his altcoin alpha channel. And he found ASTER in June. Most people obviously got in, even myself, at like 40, 50 cents, some even at $1.50. He was literally talking about it since June, which is absolutely insane. And I think farming's a big opportunity. Even though we've been talking about it in MHC for a while, I still think a lot of these perp dexes think ASTER, EdgeX, Lighter, but to a lesser extent now, there's still opportunities to make free money in the market. And it almost feels like a bit of an airdrop renaissance. So smash the like button on this video if you want me to do an airdrop farming guide tomorrow or the day after. I'd be happy to do it and talk about the stuff that I'm farming and also share some of the strategies that we've been discussing in the group. And then the final thing I want to touch on today, apart from those potential setups and narratives, is just continuing to DCA into majors that you think are going to be around in 6 months' time, because I still think the market's higher at some point in 6 months' time. So even if this weakness lasts a couple of weeks, identify protocols that are at key high time frame levels where you have some sort of invalidation that are likely to be strong. I think Link's one of them right now, coming back down to its breakout level at $20. I think this is a logical zone to bid. MNT, if it comes back down to the daily noodle, which it flipped in July and has been doing really well ever since, that could be an opportunity at $1.50. Looking at Pump, this has come down a lot, but I still think this creator meta could come back. And although it was an over-leveraged trade, and then when the market turned, a lot of the liquidations took place, I think as we start flirting with the ICO price again, that could be another opportunity to get in. And ENA is in a similar boat. Performed really well, it's lost momentum. If you just want to sit on something for 6 months, I think you can do a lot worse than DCAing ENA. Now, the traders out there, they might not take this approach, and they might, just wait for a reclaim and wait for strength. So you might, want to miss all of this and just get in on a reclaim and start entering here, once it's in a new uptrend. So it's gone from downtrend back to uptrend. That's a fine approach as well. That's an approach that I take sometimes in the market. I'm probably going to do a mix of both. I'm probably going to go in with a bit of size DCAing over the next couple of weeks at high time frame levels into alts. I'm bullish on over 6 months, and then also get into some reversal plays as well. And all the reversal plays we share in the Discord. Obviously, Paradise in his channels, Morin in his channels, Doc in his channels. We have pretty good coverage across the entire trading landscape. As you can see, Paradise is constantly posting low time frame setups. If you look at Morin as well, Morin's constantly posting setups all the time. So there's no shortage of reversal plays that you're going to be able to take if you do join the group. Surf as well, posting trades all the time. And if you actually go onto events, you can see we have many live sessions every single week to actually mentor you so you can ask questions. And I think that's actually an underrated feature of the Discord. I'm even speaking to existing members now. You guys need to be joining these because it's just, what other opportunity do you have to ask experts in their respective fields about the market live? Like, you can literally learn and absorb and learn and build a trading system from guys that have been doing it. Paradise have been doing it for 8 years since 2017. So it's a massive opportunity for those that actually want to level up their game and learn alongside, getting calls and alpha and all that stuff. So link in the description below to Mars High Club if you want to join. I will see you in the next video. Have a lovely rest of your day. Peace out.